Nintendo Switch 2 is like a long-awaited spectacular sunrise, with two really big red flags that kinda get in the way and spoil the view a little bit. It's still gonna be a huge success and a lot of fun, but I'm deeply worried, and so are many other fans, that these massive issues are just not going to be addressed at all, really preventing the Switch 2 from becoming Nintendo's best generation ever. The first red flag is one you can probably guess because it's only been discussed by, the entire internet. And so if you don't want to hear anything about that in this video, you can skip to the timestamp shown here.
Would you like an $80 Mario Kart?
Initially, I recorded myself for this video, talking about how these higher game prices was Nintendo exploiting their customers, and the fact that their demand is relatively inelastic, or in other words, most people will buy them anyway, regardless of cost, and that's why Nintendo was pricing it at what seems like such an extremely high price. But in retrospect, I don't think that's the complete picture. For one thing, Mario Kart World price is probably a Tears of the Kingdom style exception, and most games will probably be closer to Donkey Kong Bonanza in terms of price. I'm sure Nintendo thinks they're giving us a good deal because, if you adjust it for inflation, it's actually cheaper than Switch 1 games. And it's like, yeah, sure, but its wages haven't gone up in inflation though, so yeah. But the thing is, enough people are going to buy these games anyway that the higher profits might actually offset the decreased sales. Compared to the 3DS and Wii U days, Nintendo's audience is older, wealthier, and more hardcore on average. Actually, scratch the wealthier part. I guess the people who were kids back then are wealthier now, but I'm not sure about anyone else. So even though these prices are probably the nail in the coffin, in terms of Switch 2's chances of outselling Switch 1, I still wouldn't be surprised if the Switch 2 era ends up being more profitable for Nintendo than the Switch 1 era was. We could discuss the economic conditions of Switch 2 even more, but that would be a bit redundant because Nintendo Forecasts video has already done a pretty good job of that. So let's move on. The second big red flag, which I've not seen people talk about nearly as much, is Nintendo's seemingly ineffective use of the console's new features. This could reduce the Switch 2's appeal and waste valuable development times on mediocre games designed to justify features that, frankly, the only justification they need is to be used enjoyably by mainstream games. We've seen in the past that if a new Nintendo console has a feature that isn't properly integrated and shown to be more than just another gimmick, it can seriously reduce the success of the console. That's why it's just so baffling that they haven't done more to push the Switch 2's mouse mode. By all counts, this should revolutionize how we play games, making it easier to bring PC point-and-click adventures, touchscreen shooters, and more to the Switch 2. So why aren't they doubling down on it? The only good major uses I've seen so far, assuming I don't just have a bad memory, are Metroid Prime 4 and Civ 7. And although it's at least comforting that they thought it was worth confirming those two in the Direct, it's still really not a lot. Sure, I guess the news cycle is only just beginning, so there's room for them to showcase it more in the future, but right now, it's just weirdly absent. Wouldn't DS games on Nintendo Switch Online have been a perfect showcase for mouse mode? Mario Party Jamboree does feature a dedicated mouse mode, but with 10 other modes in the game, it really does feel like more of an afterthought, to be honest. If only the developers of 1-2 Switch had spent the last few years making, 2 games that showcase the Switch 2's mouse mode. I was joking! Yeah, these games look beyond mediocre. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it took a lot of work from talented developers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the game ends up having as much cultural impact as the egg that I smashed against my forehead this morning. I'm more open to the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, because in terms of what it's trying to be, it at least seems like a complete experience, more or less, and plus it is only £5. But the fact that Nintendo had to specify in the Direct that the software costs money, that's how you know that they themselves realise that it gives off free software vibes. Dragon Drive though, come on. Remember ARMS? That game that showcased the Joy-Cons a bit, and had great mechanics and vibes, but was ultimately let down by a lack of content, causing it to fade from the public consciousness? Yeah, now, imagine a game showcasing the Switch 2 Joy-Con features, specifically the mouse mode, but with even less personality and content. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be really popular. If it doesn't get a physical release, I really will not be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if it makes Mario Strikers Battle League look like a content-rich cornucopia by comparison. Okay, maybe that's a bit unfair. The main issue is that the core gameplay that doesn't really make sense.
Why on earth would I want to move doing this? Vroom, vroom, when I can just use the left joystick?
I mean, obviously, it's because they won't let you use the left joystick to move, and that's the problem. The entire gameplay premise feels contrived, based on overcomplicating something that would normally be very simple. I'd like to be proven wrong, but I think this is the kind of game that would get tiring fast, both metaphorically and literally. I guess there's a chance they're hiding some huge twist that completely recontextualizes everything we've seen up to this point, but glancing over the Nintendo Treehouse footage, yeah, it doesn't look like it. I don't normally like to dismiss the hard work of talented developers.
This game honestly just looked like a waste of time in my opinion. No offense.
Nintendo has a history of using quirky games to show off new features, but they should at least be good quirky games. And then there's the camera accessory. This one's interesting because it's kinda stuck in between two very different demographics. On the one hand, it seems like something aimed at more hardcore players, the kind of people who wouldn't mind splashing out on extra accessories. But on the other hand, a lot of those players wouldn't really need it anyway, as they've already been using Discord for a while now for their game sharing, unlike the Switch 2 video call feature, which runs at 5 frames per second.
So, who is this camera for? Well, it's certainly not me. I've never used a camera.
Now don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's an audience, but I'm really not sure that it's going to be picked up by as many people as Nintendo thinks. The price is reasonable at 50 quid, but that does add up fast if multiple friends need one. To be fair, you can plug in any USB camera, though compatibility isn't guaranteed. I do like the idea of integrating cameras into games. The Wii U had a neat touch where you could see the gamepad user's face in Nintendo Land. And yeah, I'm sure they'll find some fun, creative ways to implement it in these Switch 2 games. That said, yeah, I really wish they hadn't dedicated an entire Mario Party Jamboree mode to it. Maybe I'll warm up to it when I try it, but right now, I would have much rather seen more boards. When I want to see myself in a game, I use Mii's. Plus, a lot of people cringe at seeing their own face on screen, so even if the mode itself is fun and runs fine, I'm not sure how widely it'll be embraced. I'm sure that some people will love it, but for me personally, I think I'll find it to be a good novelty at best. For when I'm willing to go through the faff of setting up a camera where it can see my whole body, it might very well end up forgotten by the end of the console generation.
Some people have looked at these two red flags and Nintendo's habit of alternating between successes and failures and come to the conclusion that the Switch 2 might very well end up as another Wii U situation. But this can be easily debunked with one single word, which is